Let's start over there and then we'll... yes, sir. Mike.
I just want to know if there's any degradation with the system. Does it degrade over time?
So the question was, is there any degradation? I can't say that word properly.
Does it degrade?
Does it degrade over time? So in like say solar PV, where there's like a 2% drop of the panel efficiencies with heat pump systems, they don't degrade over time. There is a little bit of a concern, like anyone who's had central AC before that may have needed to have their system recharged, that some of the refrigerant could be leaking out over time if it's not properly commissioned. So when you do see on proposals like that the line sets are going to be like trip full, evacuated, and pressure tested, that would be the sign of a reputable contractor that will likely be commissioning the equipment in a way that it won't degrade over time. One thing to know that may be a little bit different is as far as with the equipment life, with all high efficiency heating and cooling equipment, we should be thinking about 15 years worth of service life, with a lot of the warranties from the Asian manufacturers being 12 years.
We wanted to convert the top of our garage.
Yep.
We want to convert the top of our garage into living space. Would that qualify for these rebates?
Yeah, for Mass Save, they have a renovations and additions program where it is paid for performance, that Mass Save would be incentivizing potentially multiple components of that project to go above code minimum. So say, for example, with heat pumps, if it was the minimum SEER that you can be putting in is 13 and you're putting in SEER 19 equipment, Mass Save is going to be kind of looking at the total amount of cooling consumption in terms of kilowatt hours that happen with the code minimum equipment, and then they pay a savings number based off of the equipment that's provided or that you're going to be selecting, and they do the same kind of calculation with insulation. So say code minimum is you need to have R19 insulation, but you wanted to go and put in spray foam insulation, your walls would be performing as like an R30, they'd be paying a savings number based off of that. So the process is a bit more confusing when you are doing heat pumps in new construction or with a renovation, because it switches from a base rebate to a paid-for performance rebate.
So it doesn't have to be a primary home.
It doesn't have to be your primary home.
I came a little bit late, so maybe you already said this, but what I want to know is, do you have to have all the upfront funding, or is it all on rebates? Because, having the upfront funding would be, you said zero interest loans, but, there's still extra expenses.
Yeah, so with, say with the heat loan, they're always paying the net difference after the rebate. So a lot of installers, I don't know if either of the two over there do this as well, but with what some of them do, let's say there's a $30,000 project and that Mass Save is going to do a $20,000 loan. With some of them, they'll offer financing options of the $10,000, and then once you get your heat loan rebate check, then you apply that to the other additional loan product that was taken out. I totally get that it's less than ideal, but that's what Mass Save came up with.
Follow-up question then?
Yeah.
Okay, we don't have that many installers. We need workforce development desperately. So where are we going to get these amazing installers?
It's getting, the installer marketplace is getting better by the day with traditional, let's say, home heating oil delivery companies, propane delivery companies, really understanding that this is where the money is, this is where customer interest is. So yeah, so it will certainly be getting there. Just in like the last 3 or 4 years that we've been running heat pump programs, just the list of participating contractors, it's growing and growing and growing, but there are still outstanding questions about workforce development and just getting more people into the trades. But one reason why people do like ductless mini splits is, I'm very excited anytime I see a solar company doing ductless mini splits, but like on the ductless mini split side, like it is not, you don't need to be in the trades for 5 years to figure out how to drill a hockey puck hole through the wall, mount the equipment, flush, get the line set started, run the line height covers, plumb. So hopefully that they will be able to be bringing in more helpers as more and more interest happens and giving those people new green careers.
We live up in Ashfield, which is a lot colder than Shelburne Falls.
Repeat the question.
Yep, they live someplace a lot colder than Shelburne Falls. So do you know with ash, so it's all the design temperatures from ash, right? Yeah, and so even if, let's say, it's negative 10 degrees, then the combination could be you size the heat pump system to whatever temperature, to 5 degrees, to 15 degrees, to 20 degrees, and then you're just supplementing the rest with wood or oil or propane, so you don't need to do it all. And then the other thing that I always keep in mind is like a store-bought electric space heater, they're all like 1,000 watts, which is like 3,412 BTUs per hour. So sometimes really the answer is like, if it is negative 10 degrees, it could just be plugging in a space, plugging in a space heater or 2 space heaters. So there are ways to supplement it other than buying more heat pump equipment. And then the other thing, if that sounds risky or nerve-wracking, is with a lot of the central heat pump systems, they can configure them in a way where there is an electric resistance heating coil built in, and that just automatically activates whenever the heat pump system can't keep up. But yeah, I do always remind myself that I have a very easy job being a heat pump consultant in Massachusetts that I wouldn't if I was a heat pump consultant in Michigan or Wisconsin, where sub-zero temperatures are part of the design. Thank you.
Right. I didn't quite catch, I think, the details of, I have completely wood heat. Yeah. If I were to, what does it take to get the full rebate on a whole house system? You understand what I'm saying? You
Yep.
Replacing
Yep, I'll take the... So the question is let's say that you don't have a central heating system and you have Eversource as your electric provider and you're just using wood to heat the home, then what would qualify for a whole home heat pump system would just be a system that falls within 90 to 120% of the building's heat load. So let's say you have a 1,000 square foot home and you're just, and don't use the rule of thumb that I'm saying, like don't quote me on this, but let's just say that it's 25 BTUs per hour, so I would say that you are going to need a heat pump system that's providing at least 25,000 BTUs per hour, and you put in a 3-zone ductless multi-split that puts out 24,000 BTUs per hour, you're going to get the $10,000 rebate, and I would think that system should cost $15,000. $10,000 rebate, $5,000 out of pocket, $2,000 federal tax credit, $3,000 when after tax season. Yeah. We'll go way in the back, and then we'll start working our way back up to the front of the room.
My question is, I had an energy audit done by Mass Save 6-7 years ago. Do I need to have another audit done now? Because they did kerosene and they did extra installation, they put in programming, thermostats, and maybe energy efficiency rating saying I couldn't get any higher on my house traffic.
Yeah. So the question was just related to Mass Save and when you need to have an audit done and when you need to have installation work done. And there's a few different qualifiers, and I should look at my computer to get this very accurate on video, but I think within the audit, I think it's within the last 4 years, because that's how long the latest software that Mass Save has been having the contractors use has been around, and then they can go and track what happened. However, if you have weatherization work done in the last, I think it's 8 years, they can also use the documentation of the weatherization work having occurred to also qualify. One thing that I'll say, and I know that with Shelburne, that they're still trying to figure out if they should be partnering with a specific company on Mass Save stuff, but just because you had one audit done, the measures of the program are always improving. So a few years ago, they started doing duct sealing and duct insulation. They also switched they have to keep up with code. So before attics, the minimum was R38 installation, and they just changed that 2 years ago to require an R49. Recessed light covers are now a part of the program as well. So before, these were, let's just pretend that there was 12 recessed lights in this room. Before, what Mass Save would do is they'd literally dig all of the insulation at least 3 inches away from all of the recessed lights on each and every end. On each end, so you'd have like this perfect sea of insulation, and then you would have all of these huge gaps where the recessed lights were, because it just insulation materials couldn't be next to them by code. Same thing with like bath fans and chimneys, but they just got recessed light covers into it. So totally know that it's like annoying to have like some random person doing an energy audit in your home and may not have when there's like no opportunity, but at the same time, it just makes sense that it checked out. And then the other thing to know is they do still offer virtual energy assessments too, so if you just need someone to kind of like more or less pencil whip, it's like, yes, this home has no opportunity, you could also be doing that through the virtual energy. They're still going to go through everything, but it's a little less invasive than a random person crawling around your house. We have one more question over in the back.
I have a home with 3 separate units and 3 separate heating systems. Can I get a rebate on each of those systems?
Yeah, so if there's 3 separate heating systems, then it'll either be one full home rebate, $10,000, or it would be every year you could be doing the partial home rebate, or you could be tackling 2 out of the 3 heating systems with the partial home rebate act. On year 1, so it does allow to like replace it right, or like replace it when failed would be a way to take advantage of Mass Save rebates.
Can you speak about multi-unit properties, especially because the electricity has to be separated from unit, if you put in a system that has like multi-units throughout the property, how does that work?
Yeah.
Can you repeat the question?
Yeah, so say for multifamily homes, what does this look like? So there's a few things that are worth touching on over here. So with Mass Save, the program is for, what most people think of Mass Save is for 1 to 4 family homes. So say you have a triple decker, and all 3 units have their own oil-fired system and their own electric account number. 10,000, 10,000, 10,000, you get 30,000 in rebates. Say you had a triple decker and it was just 1 electric account and 1 heating system for all 3 units. It'd be a flat $10,000 rebate. And that very well could make sense to bring a new electrical service and put 3 separate meters on there. Now there's 3 separate, then you could be back to $30,000, and then you could be metering, every unit could be paying their own electric bill. After we're over 4 units, we're at 5 units now, the rebate program flips again to the Mass Save multifamily program, where it's always going to be $1,250 per ton as the most that any dwelling can get, unless Mass Save works with the condo association, and then the utility may come up with a one-on-one solution for that condo association to drive greater adoption into heat pumps. So it just like with I'm putting a room over a garage question gets a little bit more complicated. It also gets more complicated with large condo associations.
So does Eversource service this equipment, or do I rely on the company hopefully around 5 years from now?
Yeah, so all of the relationships as far as keeping the equipment maintained is going to be between you and your contractor. And I'll just touch on this as well, is As far as the maintenance for the equipment, in my mind, I do see that I don't have anyone out annually to be servicing my refrigerator, and it really is all of the same components. However, half of my refrigerator is not outside during all 4 seasons in New England, so there can be a little bit more wear and tear. So it is something to talk to a contractor about of what a service annual maintenance looks like, biannual maintenance, and I would be using that also as a metric of it. And the last thing that I'll say about that too is let's say that your HVAC installer is like, yeah, we do maintenance and we charge $100 per indoor ductless mini split and say $200 for maintaining the outdoor piece of equipment. It's like, it's good to know that number, but then if you are thinking, and this is another problem with putting in these like super large multi-zones, if you have like 8 ductless mini splits and you do want to be maintaining it every year, you know, there could be $1,000 in maintenance, and that could be one of the reasons why it could, a ducted heat pump may make the most sense, because instead of maintaining 5 pieces of equipment per floor, now you're maintaining 1 piece of equipment. And I think a little bit of this has to do with like, if you're a person who brings your car to the dealership for maintenance, it's like, yeah, you're probably the type of person who wants to have a routine service plan. But if you're the type of person who like brings your car to the local mechanic, then I think that routine maintenance may be a little less required. So I'm not, for my own home, but I'm cheap, I'm not doing any routine maintenance. I'm keeping my eye on the equipment instead.
So we have plaster walls, and we had an energy assessment, and then the insulators came out, and we weren't going to just refinish these walls, so we weren't going to have them go in to the outside and the inside. So the first question is, how do you do ductless without the ugly plastic pipe outside of the wall? And the second question is that I thought I heard you say there's a requirement for insulation in the attic. Is that for the rebates or for mass save?
Yeah. So the question I just had is really true for anyone who owns an old home. Like, what does it look like? So for claiming the whole home rebate, you do need to exhaust all of the mass save measures. So say that you have lap and plaster walls, and the installer, those walls should be packed full of insulation. And say with my own home, 100 years old, lap and plaster walls, after they completed, there wasn't any cracking or bowing or buckling of any of the walls. The only damage to my home was when one of the installers put his foot through the ceiling while insulating my knee walls. So things can happen, but do know that tens of, like, it must be every year, probably Mass Save is doing more than 30,000 homes with lap and plaster walls, so it is pretty standard. So they would want to see those insulated. As far as with the line sets go, do know that with installers, it's always easier to install equipment when insulation is not in place. So as far as with the line sets go of lap and plaster walls with a balloon framed home, they could likely, a reputable installer would likely be able to even go from a second floor exterior wall, drop that line set and all the way down into the basement. You may need to pull out some fire blocking and then go straight to the outside, which is an opportunity that you wouldn't have if you did have modern 3.5-inch fiberglass and platform frame building. So do know as you are thinking of the order of operations over here with Mass Save, you just need to have things fully insulated before submitting the rebate application, not before submitting the heat, not before installing the heat pumps. And that could also be true if you're thinking about putting in a ducted system up in the attic. I would recommend first getting the ducted equipment installed, then have Mass Save out to be blowing more insulation up in that space. Thank you.
Hi, I think it's a somewhat related question. we're looking at a ducted system with an existing oil furnace, so sort of a hybrid system. And we also need window replacement, so would we need to replace the windows first before we can be eligible for a rebate? And the secondary question is, would we only be eligible for that rebate based on tonnage because it's an add-on system? And also, is the $10,000 rebate for everything, including the windows, or is that a separate program?
Yep. So a lot of questions regarding like what needs to be replaced and what doesn't. So with Mass Save, with what needs to happen for the partial home rebate is you don't need to do any insulation, any air sealing. Everyone's eligible for claiming the partial home rebate with no Mass Save measures. For the $10,000 whole home rebate, the house just needs to be fully air sealed and insulated. So the windows would be completely outside of the scope of it. And just to highlight some things, like a single pane window with like a triple track storm is, you can design a heat pump system around that architectural characteristic. So don't think that you do need to be changing up all of your windows to high performance to be installing heat pumps. But what I would say is that it would be easier to design a heat pump system with better performing glazing or glass. And that also goes back to your comment as well, is that, say, for your heat pump system, maybe that the best that they could do, that you'd be able to do would be the partial home rebate, not the whole home rebate, if you are worried about the walls suffering damage because of Mass Save insulators. But they do a lot of, I can speak to the home performance contractors, a lot of them, when you do have lath and plaster walls, they do have crews that are better with it. They can be putting the person inside, they can be watching it. But yeah, it's definitely tricky, especially if you have just heated. So, was there anything that I missed with that? Oh, with the whether or not. So, one perspective of looking at heat pump equipment and thinking about partial home and whole home, if it's from an Asian manufacturer like Mitsubishi, Samsung, Fujitsu, LG, those are the type of manufacturers that make the heat pumps without the capacity drop, that are much more suitable for the whole home heat pump rebate. Typically, the companies that are making heat pump equipment that sits on top of an oil-fired furnace are the U.S. companies, so like Carrier, Lennox, Bryant, Bosch. And that type of equipment does have a real steep capacity drop in a lot of cases where installers may be claiming this is a whole home system, but when you go and look at the performance, it's really hard to make that work as a whole home system. And usually the only way for them to make it work is they really upsize the equipment to deal with the capacity drop, and then they've just shot way past what the cooling load is of the home, and the consequences of that is leaving your home feeling cold and clammy in the summertime when it should feel delightful with, a $20,000 or $40,000 brand new HVAC system going in. So I don't have any, going back to these partial home solutions, when I'm thinking about that from an environmentalist perspective, partial home system just displays 75% of fossil fuels. And you think about that compared to I drive a Prius at the moment. I haven't yet needed to get an EV or had the funds to do so. But everyone's really excited about a Prius because instead of 25 miles per gallon, it was 40 miles per gallon. And it's well, when you just think, it's all right, great, that's a 30% reduction in the amount of gas versus a partial home heat pump system where it's displacing 75% of the carbon. It's phenomenal. So I never want anyone to beat themselves up about pursuing a partial home system.
I have another question.
Okay, one more quick one.
Another real quick one. You mentioned at the beginning of the presentation 2 tracks for getting energy audits.
Yeah.
Mass Save is on multiple month waiting lists.
Yeah.
Or it's booking out far into the year. is the second track that you mentioned also accepted for the rebate program?
Yeah, you got it.
And it's any faster?
Yeah, so the second track is the home performance contractors, and the companies that are out this way that are doing it would be American Installations, Homeworks Energy, Revise Energy. So I think those are the three big ones. Maybe is Energy Monster or Endless out this way?
Energy Monster sometimes shows up on the list and sometimes it disappears.
Okay.
Premier is the other one.
Oh yeah, Premier Installation, they're out of Gardner, Mass. They also do environmental abatement work, so if anyone has an attic filled with vermiculite, they may be your best bet.
Can you say that list again? Before you...
Yeah, so American Installations has been around Western Mass for the longest. Homeworks Energy is the largest home performance contractor in the Mass Aid program. Revise Energy.
Are those free, like Mass Save?
Yeah, so they're contractors, and one of their business lines is participating in the Mass Save program. So they do the no-cost energy audits, the 75% off installation, free air sealing. All of that is just part of what they do. Do know that sometimes with home performance contractors, though, it does get a little bit blurry of what their in-house or ancillary offerings are and what is actually Mass Save. So do know that, like, if they start talking to you about solar panels, that may be something that they do, but that is outside of the Mass Save program. So they do have everyone like sign the disclosure, but sometimes it's like it's on here, and it isn't totally clear.
Regard to heat pump hot water heaters. We were going to have one put in. A lot of suppliers said they couldn't find one that was reliable, that they were having a lot of problems with them. Did you know anything like that?
Yeah, so there's a question about reliability and heat pump hot water heaters. And if you go to Home Depot right now and you're just looking down the hot water heater aisle and you're looking at the gas ones, 6-year warranty for the premium one, 8-year warranty, and those are like the two models for 40 gallons, 60 gallons, 80 gallons. And then you look at heat pump hot water heaters, and it's a full 10-year manufacturer warranty. And there's also some smart features on there, including like flood protection that are built right into the equipment that would be coming at a, say, a propane or an electric resistant tank that would pretty much be the same price, if not more, as a heat pump water heater. So we're on to like, for say like Ream, a major manufacturer, they're on their 5th generation of that product line. And they've worked out a lot of the kinks, and they're standing by with a much longer warranty than most of their other products. And you will just hear with a lot of installers, like, with all installers, they like train on fossil fuel equipment. They made a living off of fossil fuel equipment. They're likely paying their mortgage on fossil fuel-based equipment. They have thousands of satisfied customers because they understand this equipment. So sometimes when something's new, it does seem like a lot of installers are just, they say the darndest things. It's more or less my interpretation of getting, hearing my customers bring back to me on what their, HVAC installer said. But as far as like heat pump hot water heaters, it is, it's the same exact technology that your window air conditioner is using. It's just sitting on top. It's just like, instead of dumping the heat to the outside, it's just dumping it into a vat of water. I think most people here have probably experienced a window air conditioner that's lasted at least 10 years.
Just here to kind of get a bunch of information. I install these a lot. I've been doing it for quite some time now. I teach at the local tech school and teach plumbing and HVAC, and also am a member of Master Plumbers Association meetings. So to kind of calm your fears as far as what you're talking about, we do know about it, and it's coming down. Actually, we talked about it in the last meeting, and there's a lot of towns and cities in the state that are going to make it so you can't even use fossil fuels, and I'm sure you're well aware of that. I think the gentleman that was teaching the course was saying there's at least 10 of them right now. So it's coming down the pipe. And so even though we make our living on typical fossil fuel, pipe fitting, all that stuff, the natural gas, propane, and all that, because as a plumber, you do both, and also hydronic. We do know about it. And I tell my fellow contractors and stuff, and my fellow plumbers and HVAC techs, whether you like it or not, this is coming down the pipe. And eventually, you're not going to be able to build a brand new home or a major modification without some kind of a renewable energy. Myself, I have all radiant floors in my house, high efficiency gas, but I also have a central heat pump system. Big believer in them. I install heat pumps, central and mini splits. I've been doing it for quite some time. So even the house projects that the school builds, the last 4 or 5 house projects, it's only been mini splits with some resistance at the back. So we are aware of it. There are companies, you saw a couple of them out there, that are kind of embracing it. And even on the electrical side, a lot of electricians are taking courses. Some shouldn't be doing it, but they are. But they're getting better. So I hope this helps you know that it's very popular. We all know it's an excellent product line. We know that's what the people are asking for. And like what Mike was saying, the biggest thing you can do, and I can't stress this enough, and I tell people this all the time, make your load smaller. It's much cheaper, as he gracefully pointed out, to buy a smaller system, operating costs and installation costs. You can hit people with that all day long. You tell people that. Another thing too is, it's not going to be the same. If you're used to a hot air system, a boiler, or a hot air system, we're cheap old New Englanders, we all know that. We turn our systems down really far at night, and then we go to crank them back up in the morning, because most systems are at least 20% oversized. They will handle it. That's a factor when people design systems. It's a 20% factor, because no contractor wants to get a call in January or February that my house is at 70 degrees. I think most of us would agree with that. So it's a different operation. This is what I simplify it as much as I can. I just say, pretty much set it and forget it. It's much easier for a heat pump system, especially if it's doing the whole house, to just barely kind of bump up that temperature versus trying to recover 8 to 10 degrees. It'll try to do it, but it'll run much faster and harder to try to get it to that point. And I'm sure it's a question you get all the time, because the problem that I've seen with people is if they're not informed of how the system performs correctly, they're unsatisfied with the product. And so what happens? Well, my electricity bill is ridiculous, because nobody told them how to properly really run it efficiently, and that's the biggest. So I hope that helps a little bit. So thank you for listening.
Where do you get that information? We got a house built with a heat pump.
Yeah.
But trying to figure out, one's in the bedroom, one's the rest of them in the living room. You turn both on, keep the doors open. You turn one down, you turn one. And it's become really confusing. Sometimes it does, like you said, takes a long time to turn that down. Inappropriate time for a question?
Yeah, so just there's always a question related to like heat pumps and how the heck to actually run them. So we can start with set it and forget it as being a great practice. And it's typically always cheaper to run one piece of equipment versus 2, or 2 pieces of equipment versus 3. So say if you have a multi-zone heat pump system, running the least amount of units is typically always going to be more efficient than running multiple units in their lowest setting. But every house is a little bit different. And then with the heat pump system, whether or not it is being supplemented, and if it is being supplemented with what. So if it's being supplemented with electric resistance, then I would be very cautious about any sort of aggressive setback. Say if it's being supplemented with heating oil or propane, then I wouldn't be as concerned with doing a big capacity drop overnight, because instead of the heat pump just quickly recovering, the thermostat can be configured in a way that the whole heating oil or the propane system would fire, and the heat pump would be working on conjunction with that. So there is a lot of like unique, every home is different.
is, do they need maintenance? And yes, they do. I think Mike talked about this a little bit. As he was saying, maybe not as much as they say you should in the literature if you really want to try not to spend all your money just on maintenance costs. But we learned that it's important to clean them. So we had been told that, sorry about that. We had been told that, of course, you're supposed to clean the filters. So that's just a regular, easy thing. We were actually washing out our filters, and what I've been reading lately is that just a vacuum.
Well, you wash the charcoal when you vacuum it already. So
Yeah, well,
go to your next picture.
okay, but I'd like to hear from the professionals here. Should they be vacuumed or washed, the bigger filter?
Either one's okay.
Either one, okay.
You know, they're not a really aggressive filter anyway to begin with, so either one will be fine, whatever works best for you.
Okay, great, thank you. So we had a company come to do a deep clean, yes?
Can you have an aggressive filter?
It wouldn't really fit in there, so I think what she's about ready to talk to is something I would recommend also every couple of years, and that's
Deep cleaning?
clean good months or whatever.
Yes.
Yeah. I would recommend that.
Okay, thank you. Yes, so we had gone 6 years without a deep cleaning, and we hired this company. We'd heard their ads on the radio, and so they came out and take off that outer housing. That's our filter, the smaller filter that's supposed to be replaced every 3 years. And we had been washing that. The technician told us that we shouldn't have washed that one, that should have just been vacuumed because it loses its capabilities. I think that's a deodorizer. So he replaced it for us because it had been 6 years and we hadn't replaced it. Then they put up this plastic funnel that captures water that they will spray into it. Now, I don't know how well you can see this, but up in here, we could see that there was black stuff stuck on the back of the unit. We asked if that was mold. No, we don't like to say mold in this business, so we don't know what it was. But anyway, he got at it with his pressure spray that's got to be calibrated correctly for this kind of delicate job. And it has a non-acidic, non-toxic solution that they spray in there. And then he's very careful to make sure he toweled off any water that might have gotten on the wall. That's the color of the water that came out of the system as he was doing that. So then he went to the outside and did the operation on the outside unit as well. And I do have a video, if people want to stay after, I would show it, but I'm not going to put you through it now, that shows the cleaning. You actually see it in process, and it's pretty amazing. It was a pretty nasty job that is shown in the video, and it was a real eye-opener. And just to have us see what came out of ours and see that there was stuff in there. And, you know, I don't know if Jeff is coughing less lately because we've had this clean, but he has been coughing quite a bit in the winter times, and he hasn't lately, so no idea if that has anything to do with it or not, but they say to do this every year. Some say 2. We'll probably do it more on a biannual basis. So another question I get is, how do I know if I'm on the Shelburne aggregation electric rate or not? And Mike showed a little bit about that. This is our bill, our Eversource bill. And you look in this area right here, and I'm going to blow that up a little bit. See where it says supplier Dynegy, Shelburne Ag? That means aggregation rate. And in green there, you can see what our rate is. The $0.9345. So that's what we're paying per kilowatt hour. And as Mike showed on an earlier slide, the basic rate for Eversource is 21.991. So that's a pretty big savings. And of course, that is just the supply rate, not the delivery rate, but I'm sure it makes a difference. So if you don't know if that's what you are on, that's how you would find out. Just look on your bill under the supply rate. And if you do want to get out of the basic rate and into the aggregation rate, that was something that was just given to everybody unless they opted out in Shelburne. And maybe people who moved in afterwards, I don't know exactly why other people aren't on it that might have opted in had they had the chance. But if you go to this Colonial Power Group Shelburne Community Choice Power Supply Program, and the URL is up at the top, https://colonialpowergroup.com/Shelburne/. That will get you to the website, and below all this information that you see on this page is just a lot of information about why you might want to opt into this program, making sure you know that there's no fee to do that or to opt back out of it again. However, you should be very careful if you're on a different rate, not the basic rate for Eversource, but if you had taken on a different supplier. There was someone I talked to on the phone the other day who had Constellation, for instance, and I looked up his information on that other. Should go back to that. You want to know what other suppliers are out there. This is just a snapshot of the few that I wanted to highlight. But if you went to this site, which is called Energy Switch Massachusetts, it'll list all the ones that are available in our area. There's varying rates, and they some of them have a cancellation fee. So you should make sure if yours has a cancellation fee that you really figure out whether it's worth your while to change, because this resident that was talking to me read off what his rate was, and it was different than what was listed here. He said that he had it for 10 years, and it was less than our aggregation rate. So a penny less. Yeah, but it would have cost him $150 to cancel it. So you just need to figure out what's best for you. Yes, April.
I just wanted to say that we moved in after, and we were automatically put on Eversource, and it took 2 months to get switched over, so back right away. You guys that are buying the place, make sure you choose right up front. And then do you know whether or not it's going to renew in 24?
Thank you. So this rate that is our negotiated rate is good through January of 24. And what I've heard is that it will be renegotiated, but we don't know at what level. But I think that aggregation rates in general are less than the basic rate, so I don't think we'd have any issue with it going back higher, but it's something to keep your eye on.
So I'm from Green. We also have our electricity aggregators, but it's 100% green energy. And if you are getting it from Eversource, you have to know that it's about 53% natural gas they're burning to generate the electricity. So if you're running an electric system, think of it, about half of it right now is fossil fuel. However, the state of Massachusetts just contracted 3,200 megawatts of offshore wind, and they are busily building it. So just hold on to your hat. Get this program while the getting is good.
I'm glad you brought that up. Yes, so what I noticed when we were investigating this is that there's another aggregation rate just below that. And what that says is that it's 100% wind. So it looks like we can opt into that already, and that's only 1 cent more than the aggregation rate that Jeff and I are on, so we have to think about that. So like I said, this is the group you would go to opt in to the aggregation rate if you want to do that. And it has that standard rate and then the optional, which is the wind 1%. Okay, so the next question I often get is, how do I find out more about the Mass Save program? And for Shelburne residents, I can link you up with that, but I don't think I actually put this into my presentation. There's a flyer outside the door on our Energy Committee table that gives the website for linking up to Mass Save, so you can use that. And if you have any questions, I'm here to help you through any questions you might have. I noticed that the card that I had made, the business card, is lacking a digit on my phone number. So if you picked one of those up, let me tell you what my direct cell phone number is right now. That's 413-325-5564. Yes, 413-325-5564. And on the flyer itself, the business card was wrong. On the flyer, there's a number that connects onto my cell phone, so that's right. Just wanted to say that Mass Save is funded through our energy efficiency fee on our own bills, so that all adds up to a considerable amount when you put that all together with everybody. And you can see Jeff and I paid $12.57, which is one of the larger fees on that bill just this past month.
So that's why you should all take home some of that Mass Save bags and stuff, because you've already paid for it.
So I'll be giving a presentation at the Senior Center on Tuesday the 7th from 1 to 2:30 in the afternoon. So if you're interested in that, feel free to sign up for that. It's limited to 20 people, so you might want to get on the list. And I'll try to offer more those kinds of things as well. There is information out there on the table, but there's so many ins and outs of Mass Save that I don't want to get into it today. Accessing the income eligible benefits through Mass Save, Mike showed the income chart, and it turns out that the income levels really do capture a good number of people. It's a pretty conservative level for income, so you might want to check that out and see if you might qualify. There's the lower income, and then there's the moderate income. The moderate income, you'll see on the Mass Save website, is referred to as enhanced program, which means that it's like the regular residential program, but it has more benefits, so it's enhanced. Then there is the income eligible program for people with a little bit lower income, and they are going to, what Community Action Pioneer Valley gave to me as a flyer, because they're the ones that implement that part of the program. You might have gotten a flyer out there. If you didn't get one, I'll make sure that that's part of the packet that you get by email. But know that heat pumps are part of that. So in order to qualify, you have to be within the maximum income level based on your household, approved for fuel assistance or the discount electric rate, heat your home with oil, propane, and electric baseboard, and you have to go through the weatherization program that they offer.
Which is free, though.
Which is free, yes. So that's free. And the benefits that you might be getting out of that is a partial or full house system for heating and cooling. And, they would look at your home and see if it's a heat pump that's the most appropriate, or maybe your existing system just needs upgrading. They can't do repairs, is one thing that you should know. They can actually remove an old fossil fuel system, give an electrical upgrade and single pane window upgrade, just, you know, based on what your needs are there at your home. So I would encourage you to get in the queue for that. They have been, like so many contractors, you've probably heard people talking behind you, in front of you, or speaking today, that there's long waits. So you should just expect that. You should expect long waits, but you won't get any service unless you actually call and start making appointments. So know that Community Action Pioneer Valley is getting back up and running after the pandemic and having had a shortage of staff, but they've gotten some good batches of money in to help out. And what we're hoping to do this coming, Mike's getting a call, that's why I'm distracted here. Mike, Marion Simons is trying to reach you. So what the folks at Community Action Pioneer Valley have been working with us on is they'd like to work exclusively on shelter homes for a while this spring. So our goal is to try to find out who may qualify that aren't already on fuel assistance or getting the reduced electric rate, get them into the system, because you can only apply for fuel assistance up through April. And then for the people who've been approved for fuel assistance or are on the electric rate, we'll be able to do them all at one time, as opposed to them having two counties that they service, and they're going from one end of one county to the other end of the other, and that's what they spend most of their time doing. So they thought that this would be a lot more efficient to work with us directly, since we are in a special program. And here again is the income chart, both in English and Spanish. Yes. And so it's the right-hand column that's the enhanced residential, which is the moderate income, and the left column is the lower income program, which they term income eligible program. And that's all on the MassAid website, or that'll be on one of the fact sheets that I send you.
Those are the same numbers on both charts. No, one's in Spanish and one's in.
Yeah, so I'm sorry. So.
Oh, I see. Yeah. So this, if you're below this level, you're in the income eligible. If you're in that bracket, and it's really helpful if anybody knows people who might be in this bracket. We can't go out and ask Eversource who's getting fuel assistance or whatever, because it's your business, not our business. And so they won't give us information like that. But if you come to us and you say, hey, I'm eligible, we can get you all sorts of things and into the program that we're going to be doing this spring, and we can give them incredible benefits, but we just have to, we have to bring it forward from you. We can't go hunt you down. So.
The Shelburne Energy Committee.
The Shelburne Energy Committee, sorry. Yep, sorry. Shelburne Energy Committee. So just talk to us, for sure.
So, just so you know what the route is to get an energy assessment and then get your upgrades is, so if you're the resident up there in blue, you can't go directly to get an energy assessment. Or if you get SNAP or other eligible benefits, you can't directly get an energy assessment. You have to first be on the discount electric rate or get fuel assistance. So just wanted to bring that up to you. And yet they are trying to get a more streamlined system to get fuel assistance if you're on SNAP. That's the one benefit that they're trying to work with people on, to get a little more streamlined. So I already talked about that partnership that's coming up, and that's it for my presentation.
Thank you all.
All right, so my name is Tom Johnson. I live on Bridge Street. We moved here in 2015, and in 2016, we renovated a Dutch Colonial that's on Bridge Street right next to Kowalski's clinic. It's a great house. And we tore that house right down to the studs and replaced everything. We replaced the walls, the wiring, the heating system was taken out completely. The house had stood vacant for several years and was a mess. Anyway, we ended up with a house that had all new windows, very well insulated, and we went to a full mini split system as our sole heating and cooling system. And so it's about 2,000 square feet, 3 bedrooms and a bath upstairs, a bath, living room, dining room, kitchen, in sort of an open space with few walls on the main floor, and the basement, which is plumbed. We have 4 9,000 BTU units and 1 12,000, so that adds up to 48,000 BTU. And so our outside unit is a 48,000 BTU Mitsubishi. That runs into the distribution ductwork in the basement. And then in the basement we have 1 9,000 BTU unit on the wall. And we set that at about 64 degrees and just leave it on at 64 degrees throughout the winter. In the summertime, I think we set it at about 75 degrees and leave it at 75 degrees throughout the summer. On the main floor, we have 2 units. This is a 9,000 BTU unit, and then we have a 12,000 BTU unit, sort of diagonally across on the opposite corner of the main floor. And like I say, it is fairly open space, so those units are very active in that regard. Upstairs, we have 2 9,000 BTU units. And that's basically the system. We keep the basement unit on all the time, as I mentioned. In the winter time, like now, we keep our 9,000 BTU unit on all the time. We set it at 61 degrees in the nighttime, and we set it up to 68 degrees in the daytime. In the daytime, we also turn on the 12,000 BTU unit and at 68 degrees. And then upstairs, thus far this winter, we have on occasion used one of the 2 9,000 BTU units. We'll turn that on for maybe 2 or 3 hours if it's kind of chilly up there, and that's about it. Should the electricity go off, and it hasn't in the last 6 years, we do have 30,000 BTU propane stove on the main floor. It looks like a fireplace, it looks like a wood-burning fire. It's pleasant to turn on in the morning if it's a little bit chilly and we want to just have a fire. But we use that propane stove perhaps half an hour a day on the cooler winter days. When it gets like next week, when we're going to see minus 10 degrees at night, maybe minus 15 degrees at night, and a high of maybe 5 degrees during the day, we'll probably turn on all 4 of the mini splits on the first and second floor. Maybe we'll turn on the propane as well. And maybe we're going to pay a little extra. You know, maybe it would be better to turn off some of those mini splits and just use the propane stove. But we don't get tied down in the details of those very rare days that we're getting now of minus X degrees Fahrenheit during the night or during the day. Okay, that's. Any questions about that? Yes.
I'm just curious with the force hot air, is it consistent, or you get like it feels cold and it blows a lot of wind up you, or is it more?
You can vary the strength of the fan that's blowing. You can vary the angle of the ducts so that it's pointing more down. We also have 2 ceiling fans that if, warm air is getting trapped up towards the ceiling, as it will, we occasionally will turn on our ceiling fans at the lowest point, but we rarely do that. And, we set it at 68 degrees and we're wearing a sweater in the house too. We're not going around in t-shirts and shorts.
But does it fluctuate a lot?
Yes, it fluctuates. Does it fluctuate a lot? We don't even notice it. Quite frankly, we don't even notice it. Yeah. Yes.
Did you say anything about the R level of the insulation? Or do you know?
We have 6 inches of insulation in our wall. We have
What kind of insulation?
cellulose between the 2x4s, and then an additional 2 inches of foam was added to the outside of the house.
What about the roof?
I don't know. 18 inches of cellulose, I don't know.
Cellulose?
Yeah.
I'm just curious, why do you have one in your basement?
Because actually code required us to insulate our basement. And definitely we don't want the basement cold and climby in the summertime, and we don't want it cold and dry in the wintertime. We want to have a basement that's reasonably comfortable to be in. Yeah. Any other questions? All right, next up is...
Thank you.
April Engel. My husband Doug and I live on High Street. We purchased our home I guess we moved in September. And I'm originally from this area, but had just moved back after being gone for 17 years. We were really happy to buy a house that had already had a lot done to it. It had full insulation. It was a wonderful, wonderful home. There were already some mini splits in the place. The one that you see here in this room is a 12,000, I think it's Fujitsu, yeah. And this one here also existed. I think it's 7,000 upstairs. We had, as you can see, oil, of course, hot water, which is my favorite kind of heat. But I have to say that these are pretty even, and we're happy, very happy with them. This one here is a 12,000 Dakin powered by a 24,000 compressor outside. It seems like numbers. This one is, I think, a 90,000, and then we've got a 9 and a 7 upstairs. Outside the house, on this back side, this is where the Dakin is. I plan to paint all that white stuff next year. I think it's possible to sand that down and paint it. It sits, as you can see, right next to the building. We're not slate right there, so nothing falls on it, which is great. The one on the other side of the house, that's still leaking. So there's a Fujitsu on the other side of the house, and that thing in the upper right-hand corner, that's actually a radon mitigation system. You can ignore that. This unit was placed by the folks that owned the house at the time. Many of you know them. They were not home when the contractors put this unit in place. And the placement ended up being on kind of the main side of the house, which is kind of a drag. But again, I plan on kind of paint that radon thing. And honestly, it doesn't bother us. Inside the house too, we do not find these to be visually a problem. Like, I don't even notice it. It sort of fades away. I know people talk about worrying about how it looks, and we find we don't really notice it. The heat is even for us, and we just set it and forget it. We do not mess around with it at all. We had tried at first because that's what we were used to doing, and we ended up calling actually the installer of the Fujitsu system came over and told us how we should work them, and we were happier after that. I'm trying to think if there was anything else that I wanted to tell you. Oh, actually, yes. Concerning getting involved in this process, we used American installations for our assessment, and they were great. I know that that was mentioned. They were really fast to come out, which was awesome. I would encourage you, if you're interested in doing this, get on it. We actually called 3 different installers to come and give us quotes. We only ever got one from one. The first person who came out disappeared, quit and took all of the paperwork with them. The second person who came out assured us that they would get us stuff pretty much right away. It never happened. I called twice. Oh yes, I'm getting back to you. Never heard from them again. And the third one was awesome. And I would 100% recommend them to anybody. So I really think you just need to be proactive. It's not going to happen without being a little bit aggressive about it and persistent. The people at Mass Save are awesome. They're really easy to get in touch with and to ask questions, I found. And the contractor seems to know a lot about how to do all of this. The one thing that I found interesting too to take note of that somewhat escaped my attention is that the rebates on the units only, and Mike, you can correct me on this if I'm wrong about this, but I think the things that they use, like there can be sales tax involved on the ancillary installation stuff, and they do not rebate against labor. So it has to be that your unit cost is actually the $10,000 that you'll get back against.
Okay, so there's a real sort of high street contingent. I would say that I'm on High Street too. In fact, I'm a few doors down from April, and of the maybe 15 houses on our street, say 6 or 7 of them have already done it, and my neighbor, immediate neighbor, is about to get his installed. So it's I'm incredibly proud of our street, but I don't know. Maybe I was going to say this at the end, but I'll say it at the beginning. It's not to get too philosophical, but if we don't all start doing the major changes on fossil fuel, we're doomed, okay? We're doomed. So I'm a real proponent of doing mini splits. I mean, taking the air in, taking it out, never even thinking about fossil fuel. It's the big scale. So the more people do it, the better our chances are. So this is, we have 2 units which were installed just in the spring and by a local installer, and I would agree with April that it was really hard to get an assessment, and I jumped. I did a few maybe slightly unethical things to get the assessment, but it saved months. And I pretty much told our installer, don't want to go through another summer like last summer. We don't have air conditioning. It was getting pretty unbearable for me personally and my husband. Didn't mind it as much, but the humidity that we're starting to see with climate change and the heat was getting pretty unbearable. And I said, God, we have got to get mini splits, plus helping the planet. So we have 2 units, and this is the condenser on the outside. It's Samsung, and we have excellent installer all the way through. So it's 30,000 BTUs. And both of our units are on the ground floor. So that's the one, similar to April's and Tom's. It's called a wind-free. So the person who was asking about the consistency of the flow, the wind-free from Sam, it has a perforated front. And opposed to just coming up the vent, if you use the wind-free on the remote button, it's sort of, you get the same output, but it disperses it somehow. I'm not sure how. So it's very comfortable because the soap is right there, and when it's on, cooling or heating, it's very comfortable. It's not blowing on me. So that's one thing about that unit, called a wind-free. So that's and so our 2 units are 15,000 BTU. That's another view of it. So we don't have a floor unit like you might, but our installer, when you look at this space, like a cathedral ceiling, he really did a great assessment, going all over the place, outside and inside. And he said, if you don't want that on your wall, making aesthetically under that large painting up there, I could put a console wall unit down there. And we looked at it and with the specs and everything, we said, okay, sounds pretty good. Now, this is our first winter dealing with it, and I don't think we totally figured it out. We're a little confused. I think like April, we're going to have the installer come back and give us another tutorial, because we have an oil furnace, so we're a combination. And we have an integrated control, because you have to have one if you're using oil or propane. And I had to figure out the integrated control though, but it's really, I think it's a disincentive for people to use less oil in the big picture and use more heat pump. So, but then there's a set point which I have to look into again, that the installer sets, at which point it switches over from one to the other using your oil. I still need to learn more about that. But so we have a hybrid. That's what it looks like on the outside. In our house, it's the same design as April, so it's fine. I will say also that when we traveled in Europe 15, 20 years ago, that's where we first saw these wall units in like restaurants, stores, not in homes, we're in people's homes, but we're kind of like, well, what are those? Before they ever showed up in North America. Europeans were all over. So it's like it got here, but they've been there for a long time. So, and again, just like if we're gonna, I can't emphasize enough to get us off of fossil fuel, that this is such an energy efficient, doable. I know it's not affordable for everybody, but I have to say Mass Save has a fantastic incentive program with the rebates. It's kind of a no-brainer and really makes it affordable. So, thank you.
Okay. Katie's not here. She had company coming from out of town, so she can't make it. But we are going to show her pictures. Unfortunately, I screwed up. I had a little write-up that she had done, and it was with my introduction paper for Mike, and I have no idea where I put it. So I'm really sorry about that. But at least you get to see her pictures. It's just the one slide here of the various placements for her unit. And then the last person speaking is Jeff Bettner. I live with the system here.
Yep, Cynthia knows the system really well. It was really good. So I'm going to come at this a little bit different. And the one thing that I hadn't heard talked about, after I'll show you, probably all seen my system on the flyer. So that's, we just have one heat pump that we added onto a new addition on the north side of the house. So it's an 12 by 18 addition. Our house is an 1890s Victorian on Bridge Street. And this is the only cooling this house has ever had, other than a window air conditioner for a while that we would run for maybe a couple days, and then we couldn't stand the noise. And when we put in the mini split, this has cooled the entire lower floor of our house. I mean, it's almost like, talk about oversizing. You do have to be really careful not to oversize. But but we needed it because we had no heat in this outer part, and we were worried that the paint was just gonna peel. We're going through these extreme temperatures of winter temperatures to summer temperatures, and the paint was just starting to come off the wall. So we went to the mini split, and it just really solved that solution. But what I wanted to talk about that we haven't talked about is landscaping around mini splits, because they're tricky things. You don't really want to put plants very close to a mini split, because when you do, it's a lot of wind blowing out of the mini split, and a lot of plants can't deal with that kind of temperature. This looks like it's really close. This looks close to the plant, but in this case, actually, it's about 3 or 4 foot away from the mini split itself. And what we chose here was to the left of the mini split is a dark green foliage of inkberry. And the nice thing about inkberry is it lives on the Cape and in these really harsh environments of heavy winds and all sorts of things. It just loves the mini split being there. And so that's the distance. This is actually the inkberry, and it's this is in the summer shot. This is kind of in a late summer shot. You can see that we have solar panels on our little shed. Our shed is actually east and west facing, so it's not super efficient. But those 16 panels, 8 on the east and 8 on the west, actually power our house from about April until October, 100% of the power. So you can do small-scale solar and have it really pay off. And with the mini split, we don't even notice that it hasn't really made an impact for the summer heat, and it goes a little bit in the. Sorry, I lost it on there. But I really recommend thinking about the landscaping when you're doing it. In our case, we really were trying to, just think at any one of those. So this is actually from our neighbor's yard. We live very close. So this is kind of our property boundary. And our neighbor actually does a lot of sitting area out there. Dee Heck is our neighbor. And we really wanted to protect the view of the mini split. And you can see it really protects that view well. This is from her kitchen looking out, and that's basically the view. And this is actually edible landscaping. It's a lot of blueberry, inkberry, and other things. The inkberry is not edible to us, but it's great for birds. So I just wanted to throw that out as any questions? Did I miss anything, Cynthia? She actually thought of the idea of using an inkberry, which I think really
I looked it up.
Yeah.
I looked up for wind tolerant native plants. Yes, Robin?
I actually, it just occurred to me that people who don't haven't installed them might be curious about noise level of both indoors, the indoor units, but also the condensers, because some of them are pretty big and putting a lot of, they have a lot of power. So,
ours is a pretty small system. And for ours, we haven't really had any issues. We haven't really had any issues with noise. Actually, Dee Dee has Fujitsu, I think, on the back of hers. One of hers got out of sync, and it sounded like aliens landing. But it was just an issue that they had to come out and resync it. It was something in installation kind of got it slightly out of whack. But it really, for us, it sounded like we could hear hers all day, and she wasn't around much, so she didn't even notice it. We had to almost tell her that it was out of balance. So.
Jeff, I could just mention with our unit, our system. You stand outside next to that outside unit, and the main noise you hear is the fan. And just a little bit behind the fan, you hear a little bit of a... And Fana was just there. I asked him to listen to the noise to see if we had any problems with that very subtle background humming over and above the sound of the fan.
No, just a normal function.
Yeah, so, not bad.
No, not too loud. If they're over 54 decibels, there's probably something wrong.
Yeah.
They should have it looked into.
Could I just add one more thing on the noise too? It may be, where's my, yeah, it also is, if you're thinking about installing them, your installer is going to go through the locations and the connection, and it just so happens with our console that was in that big cathedral room is literally the condenser's right outside that wall where the console, so there's hardly any distance between the two units, but that's not the case. It depends on your layout and everything else. So I think maybe we tend to hear it.
Yeah, it depends on the placement.
It's mounted on the ground, it's not mounted on the building. That makes a big difference too.
Definitely.
But the fact that it's just right outside of our kitchen windows, but it's a very, I'm used to it now. It's just a low hum. Yeah. So that's another thing.
So I wanted to say something about our house and also the cost, because people haven't mentioned the cost. And our house, we moved in 2012, and in 2013, just barely, like January 2013, we had an insulation contractor who put R60 insulation into the attic. And our house is a small, typical, little cave, really small, okay? So the R60 in the roof, and then Mass Save Blue, and that's double-faced aluminum polyiso. And it's put in the rafters, and every rafter is sealed. It's a hot roof, for people who know what that means. Then we got a rebate. We got $5,000 back, much to my surprise, from the state. Plus, we got a 30% tax credit from the feds. And we're on retirement age, so tax credits, they're helpful. So what we did is we borrowed from the credit union over 3 years, enough money, and we took the money out of the IRA. We didn't have to pay taxes on it anyway. And because we took the money out on the IRA, we would have had to pay taxes, but we didn't pay any because we had a tax credit, 30% of the cost of the solar. So here's what happened. So, and this was pretty experimental, nobody told me to do this, right? So, what we did is we used the rebate and we bought a heat pump. This was 2013, maybe 14, so it's been on there for a long time. So now, the cost, and we have one unit outside, I think it's 18,000 BTUs. They told us we should have 2 indoor units, mini splits. So we said, okay, well, we'll start with one downstairs over the cold air return, okay? So it would force hot air, so the hot air circulates through the house. One unit was just fine, it's 1,250 square feet. And so it's not very big for us. We pay $350 a year for heat and electricity. So it's because the solar collectors run a heat pump. We get money back from the solar system. The solar system is also getting a rebate every year, about $1,250. And when you add all that together and you subtract what it would have cost us for the heat, we're coming out way ahead. So I consider it a retirement program par excellence. So I think if you use your IRA, if you've got one, for the financing upfront, you're going to get all the money back anyway, and it's not going to be in an IRA-controlled, government-controlled, downward spiraling cash situation. So I recommend this whole thing. I'm really grateful for this workshop. I'm really grateful for you all here because you're providing a great service. I'm from Greenfield, but I think the insulation makes a huge difference. And it cut our heating bill, which we only had for about a month, in half.
Thank you. That was a good story. Anybody else have one?
I should just say also, in addition to that, we've had the heat loans, we've done 3. No, I forget what the maximum you can do, but I know we've done 2 of the heat loans.
And fortunately, we have a great local bank. It's really user-friendly because it's a complicated process to get through, but it's well worth it. And the rebate in our 0 interest loan over 7 years, our monthly payments on a $10,000 system is like $84 a month. So it's painless and it's really worth doing the heat loans.
Well, there's one other thing that I should say that's really important, is if you put
insulation into your house that's as tough as hard as mine, you have to be very careful about the water inside the house, in the basements. So we also live in Greenfield, which has an absolutely terrible problem with clay in the soil. And we had water in the basement, and out of fear of mold, we put in one heck of a big French drain system. And it works. And of course, we did the same thing that a lot of you all have done. We put our gutters, we got the water running away from the foundations. You know, we had to make sure that no water was coming into the basement. It's dry as a bone. We put a heat pump hot water heater in the basement. That dried it up in half. And we eliminated water system, a system that would have dried the other half by putting in the French drain.
Thank you. Yes?
Richard Binns, we just bought the Dancingburg guest house just down the road. That needs a lot of work. But anyway, we live in Suffield, Connecticut, and I want to say something about hybrid water heaters, which we haven't heard about really much about. I installed one a couple of years ago now, and we've been using oil for hot water. And I put this one in, and literally our electric bill just didn't seem to change at all, although it took over all of the water heating for the house. So I'm a big proponent of those. But I look forward to using some of the information we got today about getting that place sorted out down the road. So